We do have quite a few tornadoes here in Northeast Ohio that happened. Last year was pretty active. Of course, we had the EF4 tornado that hit Millbury on June 5th. That was the first EF4 tornado that hit northern Ohio that had ever been seen on the NEXRAD 88D radar out at Cleveland Hopkins Airport. So it's a little freaky when stuff like that starts going on here, because that only happens out in the plain states. We don't get that kind of weather, but you have to know about it. Thankfully, though, things are a little calm right now, and we could just kind of sit back and enjoy. I'm so glad that everybody's here tonight. If you ever have questions, please feel free to email me. You can stop me later on tonight when we do the little signing picture portion of the evening. Dartboard material is what I call it. Happens, believe me. I am so thrilled to get to introduce everybody to Sean Casey. He is a real life person. How neat is that? He's a nice guy, along with a really great filmmaker, and he's going to have a little bit more information on this film that we are about to see. Sean?
Yeah, I'm Sean Casey, and I'm still real and alive. Yeah, before I start, I want to point out that there is somebody here that is in this film and was a part of the Vortex 2 study. That person is Herb Stein, and he's right there. Herb, stand up. Yay, Herb. Yeah, Herb is in the film. There's a scene where there's a claw machine. There's a claw machine. And not to give anything away, but Herb is operating that claw machine. Okay? So this film that you're about to see took 8 years to do for a number of reasons. One, I love weather. It is so spectacular out there. It is being in front of something that is so beautiful and so powerful and so otherworldly. When you see a tornado form, it's difficult for me to wrap my mind around that they actually exist. And maybe that's the reason why I've done this for 8 years, is to maybe come to terms that they really are real. Secondly, you know what? In the movies, you see Twister, and it seems like tornadoes form everywhere in the film, and they're actually trying to actively get you. It would seem like it's easy to get in a tornado, right? It's really, really difficult to get into a tornado. You have to be on the right road at the wrong time to get hit by one of these things. So the whole thing started for me when I was actually 11 years old. That's when I started making films, after seeing a movie called Star Wars. In fact, I made these little animated films where I would cut out little pieces of paper, and then I'd move them a little bit and take a picture, move them a little bit, take another picture. Little animated works. And it's kind of funny that when I built TIV-1, which isn't in the movie, it was the one before this, I built this TIV-1. A number of years later, I was leafing through some of my, family photos and pictures that I had drawn. And TIV-1, as it turns out, is an exact duplicate of one of those little teeny starships that I made when I was 11 years old. And I thought to myself, man, I'm just repeating the same thing over and over again. So my father was actually an IMAX filmmaker, and I was very fortunate growing up that whenever he would go on location to an exotic place, he would take his family with him. So I kind of grew up going to cool places like the Great Barrier Reef or the Galapagos Islands and being around this big, noisy camera, an IMAX camera, a camera that was always breaking down. So I guess it kind of like imprinted on me, that this is what you do in life. You go out and you have an adventure and you curse this big camera. So as I grew older, I decided that that's what I wanted to do. And when I was 19 years old, I worked on my first IMAX film. It was called Ring of Fire, and my job was to carry cases. And then when I got a little older, we did a film on sharks, and my job was to be a location sound man. So I was recording, and I got to be the safety diver, because I was an avid scuba diver. And then after that, we did a film on Africa, and that's when they gave me the camera, the second unit camera, not the big camera, but a 35 millimeter camera. And my job was to get specific shots, because I don't think the other film crew, I think I might have been a little pain in the butt. And so what they would say is, hey, Sean, we need a shot of a crocodile eating a wildebeest when it crosses the Mara River. So here, you stay in this blind for the next 2 weeks, and here's your food. And then after that, we did a film called Alaska, Spirit of the Wild. And again, I had the same job as the second unit cinematographer. And so they do the same thing. Sean, we need some bears to catch a salmon in midair. You stay here for a couple weeks. And when you get the shot, come back. And then we did a film called Forces of Nature. I don't know if anybody has seen Forces of Nature. No? Okay. Well, that film covered volcanoes, earthquakes, and tornadoes. And it was the first time that I had ever gone storm chasing. And I fell in love with it immediately. Actually, you know what? That's kind of wrong. Before that, we were doing this film called Amazing Journeys, where we follow migrating animals. And there was one species of animal we were following called the red crabs. And on this little island in the Indian Ocean, every year, these red crabs would migrate from the forests of the interior down to the beach to spawn their eggs. And then those eggs would go off to sea, and if the whale sharks didn't swallow them, they would come back to the island. And when they came out of the water, it would be like this orange carpet of tiny, tiny, tiny crabs. It was beautiful. The only problem was that these red crabs hadn't returned. They were delayed because of the ocean currents or something or other. And then so once again, it's expensive to have an IMAX crew in the field. So they had to leave somebody behind. And of course, I was used to it at that point. So I actually got to spend Christmas on Christmas Island. I was there for an additional month, waiting for these little red crabs to come back. And do you guys know what island fever is? When you slowly start to go crazy? I was slowly starting to lose my mind on this little island, waiting for these little red crabs to come back. And luckily enough, this island had a library. So I was checking out books left and right. And I checked out a book about storm chasing. And the idea, while I was slowly going mad, about having this extended road trip through the United States was really appealing. So when I got back to the United States, I did a little research online, and I found out that there was this scientist named Dr. Josh Werman who seemed to be very active out in the field. So I called him up. I said, hi, Dr. Josh Werman, I have an IMAX camera. I have an IMAX camera. Can I go chase with you guys? He said, yeah, sure. Come on out. And little did he know that I'd be a thorn in his side for the next 12 years. Excuse me, I'm a little tired. I need a lot of caffeine. So the first time that I went out there, we were going to shoot footage for Forces of Nature. And now we're back into the storyline again. And I fell head over heels in love with storms. The way that the skies would become alive with these massive storms, miniaturizing everything on the ground, and the lightning and the hail, and the very thought that, a tornado could drop at any moment. I just loved it out there. I just loved it. And I knew that I was going to be storm chasing for a long time. The only problem was that we got the footage we needed for forces of nature. And I desperately needed an excuse to keep chasing. And also there was this incident where we locked ourselves out of a minivan while filming while a tornado was coming at us. And those two things spawned the idea of doing, of course, an IMAX film on tornadoes so I could keep chasing, but also wanting not just a minivan out there, but something that we could film from, that we could stand our ground. Because it seemed with the minivan is that you would have to get out of there right before things started to get really interesting. So, to do this film, I had no funding, because who wants to give money to a guy that's going to build a tank and drive into a tornado? Would you guys give money to that guy? No. You would. Who's that? How would you like to produce Tornado Alley 2? All right. Okay, we're going to be passing the hat around. So, where was I? Oh yes, no money. So without any money, but my father owned this IMAX camera. So that's the only reason why this film got made, is that my dear old dad loaned me his camera every spring. But still, I needed a tank. And no money to have somebody build it. I had to learn how to weld. So if you look at that vehicle out there, some of you might think that I still don't know how to weld, but I learned to weld and fabricate and grind, and the learning curve was huge. And I'm sure if you guys have seen Storm Chasers, now you know why those vehicles break down all the time. So I built TIV-1, which was very simple. I mean, I didn't have any money, of course, so I bought this used truck that had 114,000 miles on it. It was two-wheel drive, which was another mistake. And I started fabricating this thing. And the first year we went out, there wasn't any turret on it. There was nothing. It was just a metal box. A metal box. In fact, we had, to film, I had these large windows that I would unlock and pull down and then film out the side. So, we're talking the technology of those old Ironside fighting ships, where you have to turn your ship to give a broadside to the enemy. That's what we had to do. And the first year we went out, we missed a lot of shots because you had to stop and film. And my favorite shots are when you're moving towards the tornado and you're filming, because that has that energy. So as the years went by, we kept on messing around, built a turret, which took like 6 weeks to figure out, because it's hard to build a turret, as it turns out. It's hard. And then, of course, television people said, hey, here's this crazy guy, he's driving tornadoes, let's follow him. And that helped, because they paid for gas, hotel, crew, that helped make this happen too. So there was a lot of little things that were starting to help make this film. And it seemed like the longer we plugged away, we became less and less crazy to people. And that maybe this was a good idea. And then 2 years ago, we still hadn't died. So these producers decided, hey, you know what? This could be a good film. And we had already collected a lot of good footage, but we hadn't gotten that shot that I wanted to end this film with. That shot of a tornado developing right in front of us and coming directly at us. We hadn't got that yet. But this company had faith in us, and they gave us some money so we could have a second unit camera that could film the TIV going into a tornado. And also, the last 2 years, another one of the subject matters in this film became a reality. And that was the scientific study of tornadoes called Vortex 2. That's what we needed in this film. We needed science. Because these IMAX films, it's important to have science and to have something that kids can relate to as far as what scientists are doing in the field, and in this case, studying tornadoes. And so Vortex 2 was the largest scientific study of tornadoes ever conducted. There was over 100 researchers. There were 11 radar trucks. There were the meso vehicles that would drive in around tornadoes. There were these probe teams that would drop these pods in the path of tornadoes. So it was very exciting, and they were doing extremely important work. Extremely important work. So with the TIV storyline, which are those cowboys that want to get out there. I don't want to say cowboys. Let's just say gentlemen of fortune. Just like the pirates of yesteryear. We had that element where we were bringing kind of the experiential, trying to get as close as possible to these tornadoes. And finally, we had the science. We had the science of this Vortex 2 project. So in 2009 and 2010, we pretty much finished the film. And so the last couple of months, I've been busily editing this thing, putting it together, taking all that weather footage and finally compiling it to what you're going to see tonight. And this film is about the weather, That's the main character of this. Of course I love the science and I love the TIV, but what I feel passionate about is the weather images. Because the IMAX format, even though it is probably the worst camera or format in the world to make a documentary with, it is by far the best format to capture beautiful images and putting them on such a wonderful screen as the one right before you. So with that, I hope you guys like Tornado Alley. Thank you for coming. Yeah, who's the first brave soul? All right, there, that hand came out first.
What kind of gas mileage does
10 miles to the gallon. We got a 92-gallon tank. We have a range of 800 miles.
And did anybody see how much gas was in the film? That was one of the first things I was like, gas is only $2.60 in the thing?
Yeah, right here.
What was the strength of that tornado you captured in the last shot?
Yeah, we were experiencing 150 mile per hour winds. That was the max gusts in that tornado, and we were taking the winds from the broadside, so that vehicle was shaking. And at the time, the turret was bucking up and down about four inches, and so there was a moment where I thought the turret was going to pop off, and the camera with it, and the shot we had just got, and because it was my dad's camera. I wasn't going to be going home. Right there.
So what now? You finished your film.
We might go back. Well, you know what? We've got 2 tanks, right? Well, we got 1 tank. The other one's rusted away. But if you got a tank, why not use it?
Yeah, will you be at the Storm Chaser show?
Yeah, we're going to be going up. We're going to go back out this spring because I have to pay rent and go chase again. And we might be bringing a 3D rig out there, and Discovery will be following our misadventures. Right here.
The sound, the noise of the tornado, is that as loud as that was?
The noise of the tornado was that loud.
Yeah.
I had to call my wife, so I didn't know what level they had it on in here, but it's difficult to record audio because it's so loud, the mics over-modulate, and then also, we're screaming inside the vehicle at the time, so the words coming out of our mouths, at those moments might be deemed too colorful for a general audience.
What's your favorite shot from this movie, and then overall in your whole experience of filmmaking?
Actually, getting into the tornado is cool, but that large tornado that looked like an elephant trunk, kind of extending all the way down to the ground, that was one of the most beautiful tornadoes that I'd ever seen. And even though we didn't go in it, it was mesmerizing to be there because that was shot with, of course, a wide-angle lens. And while we were there, it was from 300 yards in front of us, and it extended all the way into the sky. We had just got my wife was driving at the time. She was my girlfriend at the time, and I don't know if you noticed that boat that was in the road. I was yelling at her to go closer, 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 and using more colorful language than that. And that boat that had been deposited in the road, that was kind of her mental stop sign. I say excuse, though. In the back,
How scary was it when you had locked down the
well, those moments you're not scared anymore because in those moments you just lose it, But you focus, it's like you've got to find the keys and so you put your mind to the task of searching your pockets for keys. And that's a big that's the thing out there is that, even though we have a tank, it's a homemade tank, right? It's not a tank that, it's not a real tank. It only weighs 14,000 pounds. And when you have that tornado that's forming in front of you and going straight at you and it's visually gaining strength, you rethink what you're doing. And there's that question mark that forms in your mind. But then, you say, or you think to yourself, well, we're here. And there's no way we're getting out of the way now. So you just got to do your job and film it. Focus on the job at hand. Focus on that camera so you don't make a mistake. Way in the back, in the center.
What was it like being inside the tornado?
Really windy. No, it was. You're terrified. Oh, sorry, you're terrified. Too close to the mic, huh? You're terrified. You're excited. And it's really, really windy. I mean, you're being sandblasted by 140, 150 mile per hour winds, and it's millions of pieces of grass, and grass was blasting in. The turret was jumping up and down, and I actually was wedging myself with my feet up against the ceiling, holding it down on that turret at that moment. So there becomes a moment beyond excitement, beyond terror, where in a way you think you're just holding on. Yeah, right here in the blue. Yeah. Well, it was an F4. It was that elephant trunk that was coming down. I think it had winds That was the Manchester tornado, and I think they rated it as an F4, and it had, I think, 220 to 240 mile per hour winds. There was a house that was just, you see some trees in the foreground, there had been a house there. It was completely leveled to the foundation. And we got out to make sure, there wasn't anybody there. And there was this mangled thing in the lawn right in front of the house. And I didn't recognize it at first, but then you see, the steering wheel inside this just balled up thing of metal. So it was a pretty powerful tornado. Yeah, right here. Do I ever take a little kid to go intercept a tornado? Why do you ask? Well, you ask your mommy and see what she says, and then get back to me, okay? Right over there? Yeah, it's a diesel engine, so we run on diesel. Yeah, okay, he thought that. Fine there? Did what ever break off? No, did the gas ever break off of the vehicle? The glass, sorry, yeah. No, the glass is never broken, no. The glass in the front is inch and a half thick, ballistic glass. It's got 3 layers of polycarbonate sandwiched between glass. So that's, the real stuff is on the front and the rear of the vehicle, and the side glass are 2 layers, a half-inch polycarbonate. Right there? Oh, yeah, well, when we were on Mythbusters, the tip was on Mythbusters, they tested my vehicle and another red vehicle. And
Dominator.
747, both vehicles. And here's a little unknown secret. I'll let you guys, but you can't tell anybody, okay, guys? Is that the other red vehicle kind of got cold feet in the end. So what he wanted was this metal cable tied to his vehicle to the landing gear of the 747. But they left a little slack in it. So when the vehicle started to move, it moved about 40 feet when all of a sudden it went taut and that cable broke off, went flying back towards the engine. Luckily it went underneath the engine, but it was that moment of a whistling cable. But I guess that didn't make it into that shot. Right there? How much do I scream? We scream a lot. And for different reasons. Any more? Oh, right there.
You still do Storm Chaser show?
Yeah. Discovery is going to follow us again and document our wonderful adventures of mischief.
Are you planning to release your film to DVD on DVD?
Never. This film will never be released on DVD. Well, I don't know. In the back? It took 8 months to build it. So 8 months. And yeah, it was welding and grinding. And, but by the time we did the second vehicle, we'd kind of figured some stuff out. In the way back? Way back?
You have multiple mics mounted on the cab, and are they dynamic condensers? What?
Well, that's Discovery. Everybody in the vehicle has got a wireless mic that we live with for 10 weeks, and then they have kind of 2 stationary mics. I don't know what type they use. I don't pay too much attention to them usually, but I mean them, yeah, but not the mics. Yeah, in the back there.
When you're caught in a tornado, is it hard to breathe?
If you're caught in a tornado, yeah. I haven't had any problems breathing. No. Sometimes a lot of people experience with the pressure drop, their ears popping. But I've never had my ears pop either because I have very large canals. Very large, like a fist. Right there.
How many times have you been
just my feelings. No, no one's gotten hurt from a tornado in our vehicle. You're thinking of the other vehicle. When the glass blew in and they cut, yeah, that was fun to watch. Right here?
You're going to get a tip at your local dealership. What would that run?
So you are asking to start a franchise, and I'm going to start a factory somewhere. We're going to build TIVs, and I don't know. Yeah, the TIV. We were given a Dodge truck by Dodge, and it was this beautiful black truck with the leather seats and heaters in them, and the DVD player and satellite navigation. And then we tore it down, so it was just like a engine, and the steering and the rails. And that was all that was left. And then the cost of building it was you know what, I have at this point every year we put money into it, but I don't know, $120,000 to build TIV. Is this going back to the dealership thing? You're trying to get my bottom line? Cash out the door. But if we ever do the dealership, the cars can't have AC or a heater or a radio. Just like the TIV. Right here?
How long is every tornado that you chase?
How long do tornadoes live?
So, like, how long do they last?
Yeah, how long do tornadoes last? I think on average they last 12 minutes. Most of them are pretty brief, but then you have tornadoes that, can stay on the ground. Storms that can generate tornadoes on the ground for, an hour. They keep regenerating, recycling tornadoes. In the back?
You're trapped in front of tornadoes, and you have to make a decision whether you're going to take your vehicle with you. Is this one of those you know the speed of
Well, yeah, besides, initially we were chasing with Dr. Josh Worm in his radar truck, so because we had instruments on board, and he thought, yay, these guys are going in a tornado, might as well instrument them up. Like, NASA didn't send people into space first, they sent a chimpanzee by the name of Ham. So he would give us max wind speeds over the radio, and that was kind of dynamic for the first 6 years. In the last 2 years, he was one of the principal investigators for Vortex 2. So, he really didn't have the time to focus on us. I mean, he had the real stuff to do. So the last 2 years, we've been kind of eyeballing it. If the tornado is really big and black, and it's tearing things out of the ground, we don't go into that. There's a scene in this film where we're running from a tornado, and that was the case. It was a wedge-shaped tornado, and it was moving at, I think, 50 miles per hour. And it was, we were traveling down the road like this, and it was going like this, and it was that moment where, and then just as we scooted in front of it, all these trees started, and the mast kind of blocks the view in that shot, but trees were dominoing behind us. It was insane. It felt like it was unreal. It was like a real action film where you're cueing special effects that start demoing the trees. And yeah, if we'd been, I guess, 100 feet behind, we would have had some interesting moments. Right here? How long does it take the tornado to reach the ground? It's different every time. Some tornadoes, the funnels seem to appear very quickly and are on the ground. Like when you saw those 5 little subvortices, they were dropping down. Like, visually you could see them condense, and visually you could see them reach the ground within, 2-3 seconds. Those winds were still there. There were still strong winds, but they had reached that point where condensation occurred. So that can happen very quickly, or sometimes you can just look at a funnel and it's there, hanging there forever, and it never reaches the ground. And you might track it for like 5-10 minutes, and the funnel never reaches the ground to become a tornado. Here.
You had mentioned just now the 5, I didn't catch that word, but...
Vortices, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
now, is that considered one tornado, or is that separate tornado?
Herb, what do you say?
I counted it as one.
Yeah, Herb, he's a stickler, though. 5.
Some people might call it 5.
Oh, God. The peanut gallery, right? Right here?
How fast can TIV go?
TIV can go, I'd say, 100 miles an hour. Yeah, normal speeds, but we always go the speed limit. And the back tires are cool, though. Yeah, he asked have we ever thought that we should have covered the back tires? I like those tires. 2 more questions. Right here?
I have a question for Betsy. I was just wondering if you ever watch the radar when there's severe weather and you get really, really scared yourself.
If I ever watch the radar when there's severe weather and I get scared myself, yes. The storm that hit Millbury, we saw it coming, and I literally, it hit right at about 11:15 is when it first dropped west of Millbury, and then it hit Millbury itself, I think, at 11:17, which is when I was on the air. And we showed the radar, and it was one of those moments like it had just updated the scan. And it's one of those weird moments where you can't believe what you're seeing. You know, I was like, and all that came out of my mouth is, there is something big going on there south of Toledo. And then I just wanted to get beyond it because I didn't want people to get scared. So
You know when it's really bad.
you can see it. You kind of get an idea. The problem is when you get those tornadoes that are far away, you're seeing very high up into the storm. So sometimes there's a little disconnect between what's going on up high and what's happening down low. So you have to take that into account. But it's always freaky to kind of, see a real severe storm or a possible tornado by your house. I've called my parents before. Get in the basement, Mom and Dad. Time to go. Out the door. So, yeah, that's one of those kind of moments.
Right there. Do you have a question? What was it like in the tornado? Didn't I say that a while ago? Windy. One more, because that was a quick one right here.
How many times have you seen the movie?
I edited this. Do you know how many times I've seen this movie? And I can't watch it anymore because I can't stand looking at myself. I hate it. So I've probably 1,000 times. Thousands. Each one of these shots, I know every little thing about every little shot. And the shots that I love the most are, the shots of the weather. In a way, we had this, in my mind, we stitched together the weather shots with a thread of people. And I feel like every time when we were editing, is there a way to cut out people and put more weather in? Because that's what I want to see. Yeah. So thank you so much, guys, for coming, and we'll be outside.
I got a quick question. Betsy, in the little preview in the beginning, you said every county except one in Ohio has had a tornado. I have a guess, but I want to know what is it?
I'm trying to remember the name of it right now. It's down in southern Ohio, and it's not Hocking. There's a little... What's that? That's it. Vinton County. There you go.
That wasn't my guess.
That's it. Yeah, it's a weird little shade county. There you go.
Good trivia, everyone. Remember that. All right, folks, you can exit either top or bottom. There'll be a table out there for autographs.
What you want?